Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I actually can't talk with my aligners on. Okay, hold on. I think I'm gonna remove them. They are removable, but I'm not supposed to be cheating and taking them out. Otherwise they won't work. But I think I can get this video done in like 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes long, something like that. We'll see. But I definitely can't leave my aligners out for too long. Okay, hold on. No one tell my dentist. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna go take them out so that I can talk. Oh my god, I can talk. Yes, freedom. Okay, I'm working against the clock now. I have to get this recording done really quickly. So hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we managed to reach Veteran in the Ultra League, and I did that with a very bulky and annoying team. It is also very expensive and Excel heavy. Unfortunately, not a lot of people are going to have all these Pokemon, but it is going to be Galarian Weezing on the lead with Lapras and Blastoise in the back. For the most part, I use Blastoise as a safe swap because it does a really good job of drawing out whatever Lapras is going to be weak to. So Blastoise can draw out grass types, it can also draw out fighters because the rollout is going to be resisted, and once you get the fighter out of the way, then usually Lapras can sweep in the back. For the most part, this team is a little bit weak to Steelix. It's also going to struggle against electric types in the back. Believe it or not, I haven't been seeing a lot of electric types, but the one time I decided to run triple water, I got someone running double electric, so that was really unfortunate for me. It is going to struggle a little bit against Unova Stunfisk, and I have seen a couple of those. But aside from that, this team does really well against the current meta, and for the most part, you're just trying to outbulk your opponent to take the win, and this backline is very, very bulky and very annoying. I'm running Galarian Weezing with Brutal Swing and Sludge because without the Brutal Swing, then this entire team is really going to struggle against Jellicent, and it is also going to struggle against Grumpig if you don't have that Brutal Swing. If I see Grumpig on the lead, I'll go for 2 Brutal Swings from Weezing and shield the Shadow Ball, and then I will swap out into one of my back Pokemon. For the most part, it is going to be Blastoise. Lapras is really going to struggle against Grumpig. So that's how I play it. Those are the movesets I have on my Pokemon. You can run Lapras with Skull Bash if you don't want to run it with Ice Beam. I know that Ice Beam is going to cost an Elite TM, so you can run it with Skull Bash if you want to. Aside from that, the only other recommendation I would make is having a Blastoise with a higher attack, because in the mirror, it's nice to be able to throw your Skull Bash before your opponent can throw their Skull Bash. But Blastoise is a very expensive Pokemon, and I already had this one built, so I wasn't going to build another one. So I'm just using what I have. In the mirrors, I will lose for the most part because I have 0 attack on my Lapras, and I have 0 attack on my Blastoise. Aside from that, since yesterday, I got 2 4-1s with this team, and then I went 2-3, and then I got a 5-0 to hit Veteran. So I highly recommend this team. I will only be showing you guys 3 sets, however, the 2 4-1s and the 5-0, just for the sake of time. Although there is one battle that I took from the 2-3 because I thought it was really nice, and I'm going to be showing you that as well. Anyways, I'm going to stop rambling. Let's jump straight into the battles. Alright, so those first 2 matches were so close, but in this next match we are up against a Credilli on the lead, and you actually win the 0 shields here, so I am going to go for a Sludge throwing at good move timing, and then I go for another Sludge. My opponent is going to be able to reach another Rock Tomb before I make it to another Sludge, so I go for a Brutal Swing here. This is very important. I will be able to survive another Rock Tomb, and then reach another Sludge on CMP with my opponent. I accidentally close my app here, but thank goodness my opponent actually ends up shielding because I don't think the Sludge would have KO'd because I closed my app and I didn't make it to the Excellent. However, I am able to farm them down with Lapras, come out of that with a lot of energy, and my opponent's next Pokemon is a Dusknoir. Okay. I go for a Sparkling Aria, and my opponent uses their final shield. I swap out into my Blastoise because I'm expecting my opponent to go for a Dynamic Punch. But also, I kind of recognize this backline, and I was thinking my opponent might have a Galarian Weezing of their own in the back, so I end up saving my Lapras. We are correct. There's that nice shiny Galarian Weezing, and at this point I know that I can take this one with Lapras, so I'm going to save both shields for it, because also the Dusknoir is running Hex, and I know that they will be able to spam out the dynamic punches. I'm able to go for an Ice Beam here against Dusknoir, take it out, and then my opponent goes ahead and top lefts, and we take another win there. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a terrible lead of Gastrodon. I'm going to swap out immediately into my Blastoise, and we draw a Drapion. Okay, I'm going to shield the first Crunch because I will be buffing my defense with the Skull Bash, and the next one is going to do less damage. So we go for that Skull Bash, we take a shield from my opponent, and then I'm just going to let the next Crunches go. I'm going to go straight Hydro Cannon now. I need 2 to take this Drapion out. I should be able to reach another one here, but my opponent goes for Crunch. They get the defense drop on us, unfortunately. I will reach that Hydro Cannon, and we get both of their shields out of the way. Okay, so I'm hoping that my opponent's third Pokemon is going to be weak to Lapras, and then I should be able to take this game with Lapras. We will see. We have a shield left. They bring that Gastrodon back in. I am just going to weaken it a little bit with the Brutal Swing before swapping out. And they're staying in, so I'm wondering if I should shield the Earth Power, but I have no idea what my opponent could have in the back, so I let it go. They might be able to reach another one as well. They swap out now. Their final Pokemon is a Primeape. This is going to get a little bit tricky. I end up shielding the Rage Fist here. I really thought they might go for a close combat, but we're able to go for a Sparkling Aria and then catch the next move. On our Galarian Weezing, it ends up being the Rage Fist, but thank goodness my opponent is not able to reach another one. I can farm them down and then go for an Ice Beam against the Gastrodon. It's not quite enough to KO, but the Psywaves do it, and we take another win there where we were so hard countered. That was really tricky for me. Moving on to the next battle, I believe this is going to be the loss because we already got 4 wins in the set, and this is a 4-1. So we get a really nice lead of Primeape. My opponent swaps out into a Drapion. I bring in Blastoise, and they actually let the Hydro Cannon go here, and we're able to KO them, which is really interesting because I really thought my opponent would try to win Switch. But they end up saving both shields for a very special Pokemon that they have in the back. You guys are going to see what that is. Anyways, I can bring in Galarian Weezing here, take a Rage Fist, and then my opponent is going to bring out that really annoying Unova Stunfisk. This is probably the biggest core breaker to my team, and they're also going to be able to spam out those discharges because they got buffed. And I am not going to do much with the Psywaves. I have to go for a Sparkling Aria, and I have to try to land a Sparkling Aria, but my opponent manages to catch one of my Sparkling Arias on their Primeape in the back. Really unfortunate for me. I needed to reach 2 more against this Unova Stunfisk if I wanted a chance at winning this game, but I'm not going to be able to. They are going to take our Lapras out here, and Brutal Swing's damage is really, it's a joke, honestly. The Brutal Swings do nothing to the Stunfisk. This is where I could have used Overheat. I think I could have won this with Overheat, but I need Brutal Swing with this team. Otherwise, Jelson is just going to destroy us. Anyways, we are going to lose that match. Really well played to my opponent with that catch, but that's still a 4-1 in that set. Moving on to the next battle, we are going to be up against a Weezing on the lead, so a Weezing mirror match. Let's see how this goes, but usually I will throw a Sludge, and then I'll swap out into my Blastoise. I'm going to go for a Sludge here. I'm going to try to catch the Sludge on Blastoise as well, but we don't manage to do it. However, my opponent still ends up throwing Sludge anyways, and then they swap into Feraligatr, catching our Hydro Cannon. I really need to watch out for these catches, but I am going to build up to a Skull Bash now and throw bait with a Hydro Cannon. I was expecting a Hydro Cannon from them, not a Crunch, so I let it go. And at this point, I'm not going to be able to reach another Skull Bash, so I have to go for a Hydro Cannon. At least we take a shield from my opponent. Now, I am going to bring in Lapras here because I was expecting my opponent to throw the Hydro Cannon immediately, and thank goodness they do. I am able to Psywave their Feraligatr down, have so much energy for the next Pokemon that's going to come in, and I get super lucky because a lot of people are running that Galarian Weezing lead with Feraligatr and Lapras in the back, but it ends up being a Galarian Moltres, and I should be able to handle the Galarian Moltres with the 2 Pokemon that I have left. I'm able to land an Ice Beam from our Lapras. We even land a Sludge from Weezing. It's not enough to KO, however, and at this point I have to watch out for the energy on Moltres. However, if I shield here and I go for the Sludge, I can take their Weezing out, and then my opponent is going to be forced to either try to farm our Weezing down or throw their energy. They try to go for the farm down. It's not enough. We're able to Fairy Wind them down, and we take that win. I should also say I almost messed that game up because I wasn't keeping track of how much energy their Weezing had, and I could have just gone for the Sludge immediately as soon as I got it, but I end up CMP tying with my opponent and I lose CMP. But anyways, moving on to this next match, we were up against a Malamar on the lead. Our opponent swaps out into a Weezing, and I am going to be able to counter this Weezing with our Lapras. We get rid of that Weezing, and then I can go for a Sparkling Aria against the Malamar to start weakening this Malamar. And everything from Malamar is going to be resisted on our Weezing, so I don't really care if they have energy on it. However, my opponent ends up having a Talonflame in the back, and we still have a full health Blastoise. As soon as they see the Blastoise, they just go ahead and they top left. On to the next battle, we're going to be up against another Galarian Weezing on the lead. This is a very common lead. We're just going to go for a Sludge, and then I catch the next Sludge on my Blastoise. Okay, my opponent is now going to bring out a Shadow Feraligatr, and it turns out that we're actually running very similar teams. My opponent has a Lapras in the back. I'm going to go for a Skull Bash here, expecting my opponent to shield. Yep, there's the shield. And then I should have just gone for the Hydro Cannon here to weaken their Feraligatr. I end up shielding, which is so dumb because I know that my opponent is at 2 Hydro Cannons, but either way, I was going to have to use a shield on my Weezing. I can go for a Sludge here, but it's not enough to take them out, and I end up using both my shields. So I play this so poorly. I should have just gone for the Hydro Cannon before CMP tying with my opponent. But yeah, unfortunately for me, I am 2 shields down now, and my opponent's final Pokemon is a Lapras. I'm going to go for 2 Sludges before swapping out into my own Lapras, and they bring their Galarian Weezing back out for some reason. So I am going to go for a Sparkling Aria, take their final shield, and at this point, I'm just going to commit to a full farm down, really hoping that this energy on my Lapras is going to help me. But spoiler alert, it's not. We are now in the red. I can go for 2 Sparkling Arias against their Lapras, but they're not going to be enough to KO. Now, I could have won this game if I just went for the Sparkling Aria here and then swapped out immediately into my Galarian Weezing. But actually, I don't think I would have won that because they could have farmed our Galarian Weezing down and then gone for a Sparkling Aria against our Lapras. So either way, I think I was going to lose that, but it ends up being super close. On to the next battle, we're up against a Clefable on the lead, and I'm really hoping that this Clefable is not running Meteor Mash. Now, my opponent does manage to catch the Sludge on a Lapras, and I have a really good answer to Lapras in the back. I am going to bring in my Blastoise. I had a feeling my opponent was going to go for Skull Bash, which is why I ended up shielding the first Skull Bash from their Lapras. But now I can let the next Skull Bash go. It is going to do less damage, and I can probably go for... Oh, I wasn't going to go for a full farm down. They would have made it to another move. So I go for a Hydro Cannon. Okay, my opponent is going to bring out a Zygarde. This is looking really good for me. I am able to go for another move and take a shield from my opponent, and then I can go for a Hydro Cannon. And I'm going to bring out Lapras instead of bringing out Weezing. My opponent swaps back to Clefable immediately. We take their final shield with the Sludge, and they go for a Moonblast. I was going to call that my opponent didn't have Meteor Mash. We got really lucky. They are running Swift and Moonblast, and here they can KO us with 2 Swifts. However, I think... Oh yeah, I'm just going to let this go. I'm going to come in with my Lapras because my opponent doesn't have any shields left for their Zygarde. I know that I can go for an Ice Beam. It might not KO. Let's see. Yeah, no, it KOs. We're able to take the Zygarde out, and then my opponent is going to go ahead and top left because our Lapras was still very healthy. Okay, moving on to the next battle, we are going to get really hard countered with a Swampert on the lead. I swap out immediately into Blastoise, and I'm just going to let the Sludge go. My opponent swaps out and catches on a Golisopod in the back of the Hydro Cannon. Really unfortunate for me. Again, not watching out for these catches. I really need to watch out for them, but I'm going to build up to a Skull Bash and bait with a Hydro Cannon. I was hoping I could reach another Skull Bash, but I wasn't able to. I should have just gone for the Hydro Cannon, and this match would have been much easier for me. But I am going to let 2 Aqua Jets go now here on our Weezing. I go for a Sludge. Let's see what my opponent decides to do. They let it go. Okay, that Golisopod is out of the way, and I'm really hoping that Lapras can win this for me. They are going to go for a Sludge from Swampert, which I decide to shield just to keep my Lapras healthy. And then I'm going to go for a Sparkling Aria, but I'm not going to shield the next Sludge. I should be able to Psywave their Swampert down from that range, and it looks like my opponent's final Pokemon is a Galarian Weezing of their own, so we might be able to take this win. I just have to watch out for a potential overheat. They go for a Sludge here. We end up shielding it. It's fine. But I am going to be able to go for Sparkling Arias now that my opponent has no shields left. We catch the next Sludge on our Galarian Weezing, and at this point, I'm going to commit to a full farm down on the Weezing. However, my opponent recognizes this, and they swap out into Swampert. Either way, I can still reach that Sparkling Aria, take the Swampert out, Psywave the Galarian Weezing down, and take another win, giving us a 4-1 in this set. Now, after this, we make it really high into the 2400s, and I believe I'm just like 1-4-1 away from Veteran. Yeah, I think I need a 4-1. A 3-2 is not going to get us there. Unfortunately for us, we end up losing the next set 2-3. But I do have this one battle that I want to show you guys. And on the lead, we are going to get a Shadow Steelix, another really bad core breaker for my team. I managed to catch the Earthquake on my Blastoise, but then my opponent is going to swap out into a Pokemon that is absolutely going to wall Blastoise, and that's going to be Jellicent. Okay, so here's the problem. I need my Galarian Weezing to take care of the Jellicent, but my opponent is going to be able to get so much energy from this matchup. They finally have to go for a Surf against their Blastoise, but they don't charge it up fully, so they end up getting even more energy. And here, for some reason, my opponent doesn't throw their move immediately, so I am able to go for 2 Brutal Swings. And this might be why I won this match, because I was able to take both of their shields there. And then my opponent brings that Steelix back in. So now, with shields down, I will be able to land a Sparkling Aria on this Steelix. Do I end up shielding this next move? No, it's just a Psychic Fangs. I let it go. That Jellicent is still alive, and I believe it has energy. And my opponent's final Pokemon is a Zygarde. They probably tried to catch an Ice Beam there. And then here, I can explain. It looks like I just gave my opponent free energy, but I actually was trying to clear the debuff on our Lapras. So I swap into Weezing. I was really hoping I could get to a Brutal Swing, but we don't. But thank goodness my opponent doesn't make it to another Shadow Ball. I'm able to farm them down with Lapras, go for 2 Ice Beams against a Zygarde, and we take that win. Now after that 2-3, I wasn't sure if a 4-1 would have been enough to get us to Veteran anymore, so I might need a 5-0 now if I want to make it. Anyways, in the next battle, which is the next day, we are going to be up against a Golisopod on the lead. I catch the next Aqua Jet on my Lapras instead of swapping into Blastoise. I feel like Blastoise is a better answer to Golisopod, so when I see Golisopod on the lead, I will bring in Lapras. Now we managed to draw out a Guzzlord, which is actually okay for us because we're running Ice Beam. We get a shield from them, and then my opponent is going to have to throw some energy here because I was going to be able to reach a Sparkling Aria. I don't know if it would have been enough to KO, but as soon as I bring my Weezing back in, my opponent swaps back out into that Golisopod. I'm able to take them out with a Sludge and some Fairy Winds. And then my opponent's final Pokemon is a Tentacruel. I remember this match. I was fighting for my life to win this. They go for an Acid Spray here, and then they swap back out into that Guzzlord that has so much energy. I am going to go for a Skull Bash though to take them out because I wasn't sure if a Hydro Cannon would have been enough. And then they bring that Tentacruel back in. I believe they have a shield left. Yep, they do. So I have to get that shield out of the way before going for a Skull Bash. We bait with a Hydro Cannon, get their final shield, and then I try to catch the next move on my Galarian Weezing. Unfortunately, we fail, but we sneak a roll out here and we reach the Skull Bash. This is going to be CMP tie, and Blastoise wins CMP over Tentacruel. Actually, Blastoise and Tentacruel, their CMP is very IV dependent. So sometimes if a Tentacruel has really high attack, it could win CMP over Blastoise, especially since mine has 0 attack. But we managed to take that win. Moving on to the next battle, we are going to see another Credilli on the lead, and like I told you guys, in the 0 shields, you should win this with Galarian Weezing. And with Credilli out of the way, I'm hoping that my backline is going to be good against my opponent's backline. Okay, I am going to let the next Rock Tomb go. It's not going to be enough to KO, and we will be able to CMP tie on the Sludge with the next move. Weezing is going to win CMP, and then my opponent is going to bring in their own Weezing. I swap out immediately into my Blastoise, and I'm just going to let whatever this is go. They are running Play Rough, which is really unfortunate for me, but then my opponent swaps out into Gastrodon. This could be really good because I have Lapras in the back, and my Lapras is absolutely going to destroy their Weezing. I'm going to let Blastoise go. I recognize now that I can win this with my Lapras, but my opponent is going to be able to reach another Earth Power here. I do decide to shield it just because I know for sure that this is going to be Earth Power, and my opponent could play the bait game with the Weezing. So now I have a full health Lapras against a decently healthy Weezing, but we all know that Lapras is really good into this matchup. I can go for a Sparkling Aria here, take my opponent's final shield, and I might need to watch for a catch. They go for a Play Rough, which doesn't actually do that much damage to Lapras. I might even be able to live another one. My opponent manages to catch the Sparkling Aria on their Gastrodon. I swap out into my Weezing, really hoping I could go for a Sludge, but my opponent is also forced to throw their energy so that I don't reach it. I'm still able to reach another Sparkling Aria on Lapras, take the Weezing out, and take that win. In the next battle, we're up against a Virizion on the lead. My opponent swaps out into a Blastoise, and I can't bring in my Blastoise immediately, otherwise I will lose the mirror. So I go for a Sludge, and then I decide to also shield the Skull Bash from their Blastoise. I really need to keep my Weezing aligned to their Virizion, so I went ahead and invested a shield. I would have been able to take that Blastoise out if they didn't shield, but they even invest a shield. So we're in a good situation here. They're able to go for a Leaf Blade on our Blastoise, however, my switch timer is up. I can bring in Weezing and start going for Sludges against this Virizion. Now, they are going to be able to reach another move, and the Leaf Blade actually does quite a decent amount of damage to Weezing, so I go for the Sludge to take the Virizion out. I'm not able to farm up too much energy, and then my opponent brings in a Lapras. Okay. At least I'm able to weaken the Lapras a little bit with a Sludge from my Weezing, and then I can bring in my own Lapras. Unfortunately for me, they're running Skull Bash on theirs, and all I can do is go for resisted Sparkling Arias. But it's not looking too bad for us because I was able to take a shield from them. I'm able to go for a Skull Bash from our Blastoise against their Lapras, and all they have left is this Blastoise with red HP. I even call that they go for the Hydro Cannon here, and because of that, I'm able to shield the next Hydro Cannon and go for a Hydro Cannon of my own, take that win. GG's to our opponent. On to the next battle, we are going to be up against a Shadow Steelix on the lead, so we are really hard countered here. And I'm just going to try to weaken it with some Brutal Swings before swapping out into my Blastoise. Now, I was really hoping that my opponent would throw a little bit of energy on Wheezing, but we end up taking the Psychic Fangs on Blastoise. But then my opponent swaps out into a Mandibuzz, which Blastoise can do pretty well against because we have access to that rollout and that Skull Bash, which is going to be boosting our defense. So we can take the Dark Pulse here. I will be able to reach another Hydro Cannon. Unfortunately, this means that my opponent is going to be able to bring in Steelix and farm us down. Okay, they still have 2 shields left, which is not great for me. I really need to land a Sparkling Aria, otherwise I'm not going to win this. But I'm just going to start going for these moves. Let's see how this goes. My opponent is going to use a shield. I'm going to no, actually, I call the Earthquake. Thank goodness. I end up shielding it, and then my opponent swaps out into a Golisopod, and this might be a mistake because now I can bring in Wheezing. I'm not going to shield anything from Golisopod. I know that I can come in with my Lapras, and if this Golisopod is still alive, I can farm it down and potentially reach 2 Sparkling Arias for the Steelix. We go for that Sludge. Our opponent survives, but then they see that I'm going to swap into Lapras, so they bring in Steelix immediately. 1 Sparkling Aria is not enough to take them out. I have to go for another one. I'm not going to be able to Psywave down. We reach another one. We're able to take Steelix out and then Psywave their Golisopod down, and we take that win. And with that, we already have the 4 wins that I think would be enough to get us to Veteran, but we have one last battle. I am going to go ahead and sign off here. This does end up being another win, despite seeing a Grumpig, which my team kind of struggles against. But we get the 5-0 in this set, and we make it to Veteran. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys like my content, please consider subscribing, maybe leave a like, it helps me out so much, and I will see you guys in my next video. Now I gotta go put my braces back on. Bye bye!